Okay, we're recording. So could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I am Brad Giglio. I am the Assistant Director of Recreation and Wellness here at Interlochen Center for the Arts.
And what's your background?
I have my bachelor's in exercise science, personal training, nutrition for the last 15 years or so. Majoring most recently nutrition-wise in athletic performance and obviously weight management to a certain extent, with some international athletes, local athletes, domestically, and then just kind of your average James and Joes that kind of work around. Most of my background is definitely in strength and conditioning and working with people, not only from like a strength perspective, but also working with them to be more proactive, regardless of their goal, whether it's doing an Ironman or just want to be able to get up and play with their grandkids. Anything that's kind of based around that. Really try to be very direct and purposeful with most of that stuff.
All right, so can you tell me, what do you think an injury prevention program should look like for dancers?
Yes, I can definitely give you my opinion for sure, but I mean the biggest thing is I've noticed with dancers here, especially at Interlochen, is that we have a lot of very common issues, right? I'm very much a non-dancer, other than maybe like your fun wedding weekend type of thing. I enjoy it, but obviously from a perspective of performance and athletic based movement that dancers definitely have, there's a lot of systematic issues that kind of come into play, especially specifically with ballet dancers, at least in my opinion, that I've seen is we're talking about aesthetics and looking at a certain way and how we move through space, and shoulders are flattened down, ribs are down, and pelvis is kind of neutral, and everything's meant to be kind of nice and streamlined, which looks beautiful and is fantastic, and it definitely has its place, but with the repetition in which you guys perform at is where we start to build the issues. It's just like anything else. If a football player or a gymnast or anything like that tends to do something a little bit too much, then we have issues. So really my thought, especially coming here, was wanting to definitely take a more proactive approach. So, sitting in, observing, seeing the movements, trying to get some of the terminology so that way I can make it relatable. To me, when working with, especially like a younger group of people, that is a must. So like a prevention program, if you really want them to be able to do it to their need, to your desire, and what you think is being helpful for them, it has to be relatable.
Yeah.
If it's not relatable,
Yeah.
it's not gonna click, right? From those kind of mental teenage years, from being 15 to 18, if it doesn't make sense to you, you could care less. Like you're just not gonna be engaged in it. The only reason they do a lot of the things that they've done now is because it's been programmed in them since they've started dancing, right? So some of those kind of like these things that aren't wrong. It's just, again, repetitiveness. So
like that overstretching.
The overstretching, the relying on tendon length rather than muscle strength.
Yeah.
and stabilization.
Yeah.
Right, because that's when we start to stretch and we start to get hypermobile, or many people who dance tend to have bodies where they're just in general very flexible, right? That's kind of been, again, built in. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We just need to help educate them to learn to manage that. And I think that's really where injury prevention definitely comes into play. Is, are you going to get injured? Are you going to get hurt? Yes. It's kind of the nature of the beast. It's just like, it's just growing older in general, right? We get hurt walking down the street. But it's one of those things where if you can mentally connect it to what you are doing, how it is going to affect your art in this case, how it is going to affect your body in the future, then you start to be and have a more proactive mindset around that. And that to me is everything when it comes to maintaining your passion and building on your passion. If not, then you're going to be doing something one day and you're gonna land and your knee's gonna go out, or you're gonna tear your Achilles or something like that. And our thought process is like, what did I do to injure myself? When in reality, it didn't just happen. The injury just happened, but this has been 10, 12, 15 years in the making. That just happened to be the catalyst, or like the tipping point that pushed us over. And humans are very like, well, what happened 10 seconds ago? Oh my gosh, like that's what caused it. Like, no, it's been kind of these repetitive behaviors and actions that have built into that. So kind of getting back to it, looking at the structural aspect of what a lot of dancers do in order for their art to look the way it should aesthetically now, and very much play to the historical aspect of what ballet and dance has been. There's systematic and structural issues that, when done repetitively, will have problems. Typically tight hamstrings, hips, low back, right? So because we're working through these long ranges of motion in these spaces, if we're able to kind of look at where that tends to be the issue, or what systematically is the problem, it always tends to be on the back side. Right, from the base of the neck all the way down to the heels. And that's where they get a lot of mid-thoracic and scapular issues, because we're holding out and we're very flat-shouldered, and that tends to kind of change the way your bodies and your scaps are engaging your body, right? So there's all these different things that are happening. So it's just getting them to understand that, because everything that we do in dance is in front of a mirror, so everything is very in front. I'm not looking
behind.
Curious what's going on
we
back.
move side to side or forward often.
And we're not curious about what's going on out there. And there's not a lot of midline crossing. There's not a lot of crossing across the midline. It tends to look sloppy from a dance perspective. Right. We want things to be nice and lateral, and there's a ton of side to side, which is why they're very strong here and they're weaker on the inside. So
weak inner thighs, strong.
And so just
muscle imbalance.
Exactly. Muscle imbalance. So just like looking at those and observing those pieces is really where a prevention injury protocol, kind of like what we're doing here, needs to kind of be analyzed and taken into. And it's getting them to buy into that. Like, that's writing a program's easy to do that. Like, that's not hard, because there's very specific, tangible tasks that you say, okay, we need to do this. But then getting them to do it is the harder part.
Is the hard part. Right? What do you think are some steps that are necessary to get that?
I think for, at least in our experience, because I don't think this has been done too often.
Right.
I mean, maybe more on a collegiate level and obviously like a company level, but for like a school, I think this is probably, especially just like I shouldn't say baseline, because obviously we're not baseline, but like a secondary in school, high school, and like this doesn't really happen ever, right? So I think, we're getting an opportunity to kind of break new ground, but I think like for us, like the class that we're doing is massive.
You're right.
So, we come in, we do some stuff, we show them some ideal ways to warm up, right? And how it isn't going to affect their flexibility, because they're so concerned with being lean and long that they don't take into consideration, nor do they know how that's affecting their joint stability.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when they're bending, they can put their head to the knee, but they can't hold that position because they don't have the engagement principles to be able to do that and do it safely, right? So like wear and tear after a while, like your joints are just sitting on structure. There's no soft tissue impact of like actually holding. So like doing some of those things I think is big, but where I think they get the most buy-in is when I do something, I'm showing them something, here are some exercises, here are some warming up, here's how it's going to affect dance, and then here you come, and it's like, okay, so when we're talking about plies or yada yada yada, they can go, okay, I got it, I get it, that's why this is beneficial. Then the next day when they're a little bit sore, and they're doing their standard bar or they're doing open floor, and they feel those muscles, that biofeedback starts to kick in.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
you start, you kind of increase the messaging with it, and you're consistent with the messaging, and then they start to see it, they start to learn it, and they start to buy into it without the, that teenage rebelliousness
Right.
automatically kind of kicking in. They start to find it.
Yeah, and a big part of it is having the instructors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like that, I mean, I can say,
Yeah.
okay, here, this is going to make you better.
Yeah.
Right? And I very well could be right. But at the same time, if I don't have the lingo or the connection to what they're doing, it's not really going to matter. So I think, it's going to matter, but it's not going to necessarily make sense. So I think having that lateral transitioning aspect, or like that blended aspect, is huge in order to create that buy-in, to get them to actually do the things that are not necessarily going to make them better technique-wise. It'll enhance what they already have, but it'll also kind of make them, stronger in a sense, but more confident in that their training principles are translating to their performance.
Yeah.
And that's what a performer cares about.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care about anything else.
Right.
Like, they want to look good on stage, and
Right.
they want to move well on stage,
Yeah.
and they want to be
yeah.
in the front, and they want to do all that. And those are small pieces that help get them there. They just don't see it right away, and then as those things transition, then it starts to build.
Yeah. Cool. Good. All right. Anything else you want to add to that?
Not that I can think of. The hardest part by far is connecting the two, especially with the group of students that we have.
Yeah.
Because people who have been doing specifically ballet or dance in general, this isn't just something that you start, right? It's something that has been going on for years, since like you were very, very small, most times than not.
Right.
So you're literally not only battling, a teenage mindset, but you're battling a teenage mindset that has been told to do a certain thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, it really is breaking down those, it's just those old naive concepts of what dance, just not understanding the body and what they've been told from teachers for years and years and years about stretching, about not bulking up, about all these kind of weird concepts people have.
Yeah, and I think, but like the kinese class that you started last year, with me coming in, and just again pairing those messages, like you can see the wheels turning, you can see them starting to go, oh, because you don't know what you don't know. Right. And that's been something that has never been really considered. In recent years with, like I said, like bigger companies and colleges, yes, but up until then, from like a cultural standpoint, it never really was a consideration, right? So it's, so you blow out your knee and no one really cares why. It's just next person in. Yeah. That kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, you can't do it, so here you go. So this is kind of helping them understand, like, if you don't want that to happen, there's no guarantees, but if you prepare and you're mindful and you can understand that if my calf hurts or my Achilles is tight or I'm having some pain in the front part of my knee, if you can systematically, just through like what you've experienced and learned, if you can kind of go, okay, well, if that's hurting here, then I'm probably a little bit weak right here. Maybe that's why my hamstring's been tight, and that's why my knee's bothering me. Then at least you can either one, ask the right questions, right? Or two, you can apply some of the principles that you've learned for yourself, and you don't have to necessarily be dependent upon waiting for a specific answer all the time. Like you can be more proactive with your care. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's perfect,
right?
But at least there's something, and you can be more proactive with it. And at least you can maybe give a little bit more concise, information to the trainer, to the doctor of what's going on, so that way you're not wasting time, and then you can kind of just build a regimen that works for you, because we're all different. Everybody's body types are different, but that will allow you to kind of create that body IQ of what is actually happening. Right, that's what happens when we get older. Is like we start like feel things, and we're like, well, this is what this was, 15 years ago when I was doing X, Y, and Z, and I didn't pay attention to it, and yada, yada, yada. So we're there, and we're trying to help them understand it, and I think educational things like this or programs